I mean, and those guys, like I said, are so fast. They have such a good deep threat. And I've been getting to throw with them in some workouts. And another guy, Jana Harris is another guy that this kid, that kid's a great athlete too. But, Nelson was a really good, really fast guy. But, it all depends. A lot of our stuff isn't really, we're going to try to go deep every time. It's all more game plan, scheming the other teams. But yeah, I'm happy. We have that deep threat now and a couple guys that can move down the field pretty fast. Yeah.
What was the team's reaction when you guys found out? I mean, I know you're not going to be here at the Cowboys Classic, but when you guys found out that you're playing Alabama next year,
yeah, obviously, yeah, and that'd be a fun game to play, and I'm, really excited for those guys. It's so cool that, we're starting to expand out like that, play teams from the SEC, hopefully play some teams from the Big 12, I think. We play Texas or something a while down the road. But no, that'll be fun, it's awesome, because you never get to play teams like that in the year, so now you have a scheduled game. I think it'll be fun, a lot of these guys, the younger guys are excited, but I told them, I was like, calm down, our main focus is Fresno State, fall camp right now, wait for that in 2 years when it gets here.
Do you measure yourself against the other quarterbacks in the Pac-12 as deep as this league is position?
I think you have to in the sense of, you got to outplay them. And I wouldn't necessarily say measure, but that you got to play better than that guy in that game because, when you have quarterbacks such as Marcus and Sean and Brett that can come out and throw 4 or 5 touchdowns in the game, you got to be right there with them and help your defense out and give them, a little bit of a cushion. But, I wouldn't really say measure. I like to compete with them and, I'd obviously like to play better than them and be in that elite group, and they tell you the same thing. They want to be the top quarterback in the conference. But at the end of the day, it comes down to winning games and how the quarterback plays is going to help you do that.
Coaches always have that tunnel vision. They don't want to talk about any of the other teams, other things. But as quarterbacks, do you think that everybody keeps up with each other? You look at the stat box to see what Mannion did or Mariota did. Or...
No, I don't look at the stat box. I look at who won more so. Who's winning that game, who won that game, and most of the time, if you look at who won, I can tell you how the quarterback played in the game. But no, I never compare stats. My biggest thing is winning games. And obviously, the stat I focus on is not turning the ball over. And throwing touchdowns to help us win. But no, at the end of the day, I focus on the team aspect of it.
Why do you think you played better after Coach Kiffin was fired last year?
I don't know. I think it was more so the fact that I got more starts under my belt. It was my first year. I got more comfortable with the offense. I felt more relaxed. I wasn't competing for a job like I was the first 2 weeks of the season. So I felt more established. So I don't think the coaching change had much to do with it. I think it was more so me being more comfortable, playing in games and getting more, starts under my belt.
You were at the Manning Passing Academy with a bunch of other Pac-12 guys. Was that your first chance to really spend some time with guys like Sean? And what was that like?
Yeah. We know each other, associate, being in the same conference. But yeah, it was awesome. I got to spend a lot of time with Marcus, Sean, Brett. Connor was there. A lot of guys that were there. Kevin was there. Hogan. Those guys are really cool guys. And obviously, there's a little bit of competition, friendly competition there. But getting to hear, what it's like for them, or what it's like on game day, and hear something from someone else's aspect. It's really cool. So I definitely look forward to it. And it's going to be a little bit more, I think, on the games when we play each other, just because we have so much more friendship.
Did that environment foster any sort of Pac-12 camaraderie?
Yeah,
I was the dominant group of the conferences.
Yeah, it was fun. Because there was all the other conferences there, so we were giving each other a hard time and just joking back and forth with some of the guys from the SEC or the Big 12. But it's fun. I'm very proud, to be a part of this conference and be a part of this quarterback tradition that's played here before and how we're keeping it up this year. So but yet at the same time, it's easy for you to fall back, so you have to bring your A game every week.
You talked about Mariota, one of those guys being able to throw 3-4 touchdowns a week. What's it like going into a game knowing you're going to go up against a guy like that week in and week out with so many quarterbacks in this conference?
Yeah, it's like I touched on before. When you go up against those quarterbacks, you got to outplay them. Because they're over there and they're trying to beat you. You're trying to beat them and help your defense out. But you can never take a week off. Especially in this conference with how many great quarterbacks there are. You can't have a great game and then settle the next week. You have to have an even better game each week and keep improving. No matter what quarterback you're going up against.
In camp or in spring, you talked about competing against like the Brett Hundleys and the Jameis Winstons and things like that. Every day in practice mentally. Where do you feel you stack among the quarterbacks in this conference?
Yeah, I feel like last year being my first year, I feel like I made a lot of improvement. And, I couldn't tell you right now where it's at, but all I know is that my main goal, like you said, was focus, wanting to be or establish myself as one of those elite quarterbacks, not only in the conference, but, across the country. And, it's just all going to depend on how I can play. I can say it as much as I want that I want this and want that, but, it's all going to depend on how I play this year.
Did you look at those rankings in terms of where they list you guys? Have you seen any?
For what?
Have you seen those rankings in terms of where they list you guys?
No, I haven't. No, I don't read articles or anything like that. The only thing that I see is like Twitter stuff, but no, I don't see it.
When you see UCLA picked ahead of you guys in the preseason poll, does that register at all with you guys?
No, I didn't know that until now. But no, I mean they're doing a great job. They're playing really well. They beat us the last 2 years. So that doesn't surprise me that they're ahead of us. And they've got a great team over there, and Brett's doing a great job with those guys. So it's going to be fun when we get to that game this year. And obviously it's the rivalry week, so it's going to be a real big competition. But no, I mean they're doing a great job, so it's going to be a tough week.
A little more fuel to the fire because you guys haven't been beaten 2 years in a row.
Yeah, it goes back and forth, so it's definitely really competitive, especially when you're playing your rival. But no, I mean we'll worry about that when we get there. So it'll be, guys would be lying if they said they don't focus a little bit more on the rivalry week. But no, they're doing a great job.
You have some new wide receivers. Talk about your receivers this year.
Yeah, we got Nelson obviously established himself really well last year. Some younger guys I mentioned earlier have come in and done a great job. Some incoming freshmen, have really worked hard and learning this offense. And, they're going to have to make an impact because of, like we've had before, so some of the lost numbers we have, so we're not, as stacked at some of the positions. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for us to find is who's going to be that number 2 and number 3 guy. So there's Darius Schreiber, Victor Blackwell, George Farmer, and Stephen Mitchell's helping out too. So those are probably the best guys for that candidate. But the list is awesome. I think a lot of guys are going to see some of these guys that have been hurt and see what they can really do this year.
This is the first time in a while that USC has had a quarterback, a non-controversial situation. How do you feel about coming in as a starter, knowing you're the starter?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Last year it was tough to really establish myself as a leader before the season started. And now that I'm actually the guy and I can rally these guys and start leading them and helping them out, it's helped me out confidence-wise too a lot more this year.
Between now and the first game against Fresno, what's the biggest thing you want to see growth-wise from your offensive line?
Right now that's one of the question marks we have. We don't know. Guys have been moving around a lot in the spring and jumping around, and we don't know who's going to stay in what position. But I live also with our center right now, Max Turk, so I know that he'll have them ready, no matter who's out there. But the only thing I can see is open for competition. So whoever's going to want to play there, whoever's going to want to be, one of those 5 starters is going to take it. No matter who's out there, I'm going to trust them, and I know that I'll be protected.
Hey Cody, talk to me about the slot position a little bit and what's different, having that position on the field a little bit more.
Yeah, we do a lot more. Obviously, 3 wide receivers in, and it's going to be, I think, a really effective position because we got a lot of guys that you don't necessarily have to be the biggest guy at slot, but you're really quick. And we got a lot of guys that can really fill that position. So it's going to be interesting in the fall to see who moves around or who's going to be in what spot. Obviously, Nelson will be one of the outside guys. And other than that, it's really wide open for guys to move around.
What's the concern, because you guys used to put a tight end out there instead of the slot? Why, did you use the tight end before? What's the concern with using the slot?
Well, no, we actually use a lot of tight ends in this offense. And we got a really good tight end. Randall's healthy, which is I'm very happy about that. He's one of those guys that works really hard. But yeah, I think it gives us more of a threat, not necessarily in the quick game, but being able to spread the ball around the field when you have such great athletes, at perimeter spots and also in the slot.
There's been so much talk, this summer about student athletes being considered employees and NCAA reform and that sort of thing. When you hear that word employee, what do you think? Does that make you uncomfortable as a student athlete?
I don't know. I haven't really, looked into that. And they were trying to, tell us before, trying to fill us in on it. And I honestly could not tell you where that's at right now. But, at the end of the day, my main focus, is to play football, come here, get a degree from USC, ultimately play at the next level. All that stuff's going to take care of itself.
Do you think Marquise getting hurt last year kind of accelerated that development of Nelson? Is that